Weirdboyz are conduits for the powers of the Waaagh, which allows them to smash their enemies flat with psychic headbutts, vomit corrosive storms of livid green ectoplasm, or teleport mobs of orcs into the fight. That is, of course, if all that Waaagh energy doesn't cause the Weirdboy's head to explode first. Hello there and welcome to this video all about painting the awesome new Weirdboy. Let's waste no time and jump straight into it. All the paints that we're using are on screen now. If you've painted orcs before, a lot of these will be familiar to you. But seeing as we're painting a unique character today, there's also some extra ones as well. And here's also a list of all the extra equipment and brushes that we'll be using. Before we get started, our mini first needs an undercoat. In today's video, we're using Mechanicus Standard Grey Spray. This works really nicely because our Weirdboy has lots of different colours on him, some darker ones and some lighter ones, so this works great across the board. With that out of the way, let's start with our first base coat, which is Ork Flesh for the skin. You will need to apply several thin layers of this as it is quite a thin paint. And because this is our first base coat, we don't have to be all that tidy when applying this. But keeping it neat will better allow you to see the other areas that we'll be painting later. Once you're happy with all the painted skin, next we can pick out all the black areas using Abaddon Black. So that's the cloak, the teeth, and also these wild cables. Some of these cables will be painted with different colours later, so you don't have to pick them all out now with Abaddon Black if you don't want to. But if you're unsure which ones to paint, check out the box art for help. For all the brown leather areas, we're using Dryad Bark. Feel free to switch this out with a different brown paint if you want a lighter or a darker tone. Both Rhinox Hide and Mournfang Brown are some great alternatives. But I think Dryad Bark works perfectly on our Weirdboy. With that done, next let's base coat some of the cables using Averland Sunset. This is once again quite a bright paint, so you may need a couple extra layers to achieve full coverage. And if you're unsure which cables to pick out, check out the box art for help. For the cloth on the feet and any bone areas like on the staff, we're base coating them now using Wraithbone. We've got quite a few base coats on our model now, so we just need to be extra careful not to get any of this onto our other colours. Once you're happy with those areas, we can also carefully pick out the veins on the skin, which we'll add a purple hue to later. Next, it's time for some metallics. First up is Leadbelcher for all the silver details. Some of these areas appear as a pinky or purple glow on the box art, and we'll be adding that over the top later, so for now just pick out these areas using Leadbelcher. And once you're done with the silver, we can pick out some extra metallic details using Runelord Brass. So that's the accessories on the staff and some of the coils on the back too. You can also pick out these parts at the end of the cables, but that's totally up to you. They will be tinted a pinky purple colour later anyway. Next, let's base coat all the nails and talons across our Weirdboy using Caliban Green. These are quite small details, so just take your time and be as careful as you can. And if you do make any mistakes, simply go back to Ork Flesh to tidy up. For our last base coat before we get onto shading, let's use Screamer Pink to base coat the tongue, staff handle, and a few remaining cables as well. Nice and easy. And with that done, we're ready for shading. Let's start by shading all the skin using Athonian Camoshade. Applying this as a recess shade will give you the cleanest results, but if this isn't your style, feel free to apply this as an all-over shade instead if you'd like to. If you are recess shading like me, if you do make any mistakes, just wait until the shade has totally dried and then fix it back up again with Ork Flesh. To shade everything else on our Weirdboy, let's use Agrax Earthshade. It's up to you whether you apply this as an all-over shade or as a recess shade. But either way, for the Wraithbone areas, we're mixing in a small amount of Lahmian Medium to make the shade a little more subtle. With that done, we're making real progress with our Weirdboy now. Before we move on to the highlights, we just need to firstly base coat the eyes and the psychic energy emitting from his staff using Corax White. You will need a few thin layers of this for a solid base coat. Once you're happy, we can move on to some finishing touches and extra details using Abaddon Black. So firstly, what we're doing here is dotting the left eye. Then with that done, we can dry brush the end of the psychic energy. This might seem a little weird now because we'll be applying contrast paint over the top later. And then finally, using Abaddon Black, if you do fancy it, you can apply some hazard lines to all those yellow cables. You don't have to do this, but this is how they appear on the box art and it does look awesome. Once you're done, if they are looking a little too bright, you can add some Agrax Earthshade over the top of them to darken them down and tie all those different colours together. And with those hazard stripes added and looking great, it's now time to move on to the highlights and finishing touches. Let's start off with all the skin, which we're highlighting with Nurgling Green. Be as careful as you can and remember that you can always go back to Ork Flesh to tidy up any mistakes if you do make any. To highlight these black larger parts of the cables, Rather than painting harsh lines, we're going to instead apply a couple of glazes towards the edges and raised sections. Firstly, let's use Dark Reaper. And then, once you've built up a colour transition with lots of thin layers, we can finish it off on the very raised areas using Thunderhawk Blue like so. To edge highlight all the metallics, so that's both the Leadbelcher and the Runelord Brass areas, we're using Stormhost Silver. Feel free to edge highlight this on or apply a dry brush, or even use a mixture of both techniques, it's totally up to you. To highlight all the Screamer Pink details, we're using Pink Horror. So that's some of these cables, the wrapping on the staff handle, and also the tongue as well. This part is quite a hard to reach area, so just be as careful as you can. Next, let's use Screaming Skull for a series of different things across the model. Firstly, let's highlight the hazard stripe cables, the bandaging around the feet, and also the skull on the staff. Then with that done, let's also apply a dot highlight to all the talons across our Weirdboyz hands and feet. For all the brown areas, let's highlight them now using Baneblade Brown. You can stipple this on for a weathered and worn effect if you'd like to, but it's your choice. And then with that done, now we can finally take a break from highlighting, and now it's time to apply some contrast paint. Using some Volupus Pink thinned with a small amount of Lahmian Medium, let's begin by picking out the eyes and also this psychic particle effect. This is a really neat and simple way of making these parts of the model look great. With that done, we can thin our Volupus Pink down even further and apply it to the inside of the mouth and the gums. This will add a subtle hint of pink, which will make these areas look more natural. And on the flip side, we can also add this to the end of all the floating cables to make them look a little bit more unnatural and warp infused. The only thing left to pick out with that done are the few veins dotted around our Weirdboyz arms. And with all that Volupus Pink added, our mini is looking well and truly awesome now. Let's quickly speed through the last couple stages. So to highlight all the black details like the cloak, let's use Dawnstone. And we've saved this to the end because we're also going to glaze the teeth with this and base coat the rock on the base. Once the base coat on the rock has dried, you'll just need to shade it with whatever way matches the rest of your army. I'm using Agrax Earthshade. And then finally, all that's left is Corax White to glaze the very tips of the teeth, and you can also apply this to the psychic energy if you want to, but I actually think it looks great as it is. Blammo. And there we are, all that's left now is to base your model to match the rest of your Ork army. I'm using Armageddon Dust texture paint, shading it with Seraphim Sepia, dry brushing it with Screaming Skull, and then painting the base rim using Steel Legion Drab. And with that done, our Ork Weirdboy is ready to unleash psychic headbutts and corrosive storms of ectoplasm on the battlefield. With any luck, all that Waaagh energy won't cause his head to explode first. But anyways, that's all from me. Thanks for watching this video. In the meantime, if you are looking for more tutorials, go straight to warhammercommunity.com for the latest Warhammer news and content. Thanks again for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.